listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM. If you have been listening to us during our first hour, we were talking about taxes. We were talking about not taking advantage of people in vulnerable financial positions. We're also talking about taking advantage of economic situations if you are in a good position for that. And we also offered a book here, Penny Pinching Principles for Money-Wise Parents, which you can also order from us for absolutely free. #Penny. Just text us with these magical words. #Penny to 0491 064 But we're not going to be moving on, and we're going to be talking about the Winter Olympics. Did you know that my friend Dan, who is with us, he actually worked at an Olympics?
Oh, I did.
Yes.
The Sydney Games?
The Sydney Games.
2000.
Yeah. Awesome.
He's going to share with us some never heard before backstage information. So stay tuned for that one. We are also going to talk about the new album by a Christian singer named Trip Lee. And he made an entire album reflecting his own ongoing journey with chronic illness, chronic fatigue, and also praising God. And how to praise God. How is God good when life is hard? This is what his album is all about. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And we're also going to have an interview today with Angela Saunders. She's a dietitian and nutritionist. And she is going to be talking to us about the connection between mental health and what we eat. Do you know that a lot of of our mental health state depends on what we eat?
That's amazing.
So she's going to be talking to us about that one and the latest science and research about it. So that's going to be a great one.
Can't wait.
Yeah, 7:35. Now, word is with producer Sandy.
Yes.
She's going to share with us another quiz question. Please, Sandy.
Quiz question number 3. Which of these men is listed as one of Jesus' ancestors? 4 options. A, Jonah. B, Caleb. C, Moses. Or D, Zerubbabel. Which of these men is listed as one of Jesus' ancestors? A, Jonah, B, Caleb, C, Moses, or D, Zerubbabel. We've got correct answers in the studio. Our listeners can check out Matthew 1 or Luke chapter 3 and send us your answers to 0491 064 669. And I will read that question one more time. Which of these men is listed as one of Jesus' ancestors? A, Jonah, B, Caleb, C, Moses, or D, Zerubbabel.
Okay.
Let us know your answer, 0491 064 669.
How did you answer that question, Skafy? Did you know that answer, or was it a process of
No,
elimination?
I knew that answer. I'll tell you why, actually. There's a cool story behind it.
And I knew the answer through, I didn't know the answer, but a process of elimination.
Yeah, a process of elimination.
The others weren't, so.
Yeah. Okay. No, I knew this one straight up because I'll tell. There's a little bit of a story to that one.
Keep that story.
Should I keep the story for a little bit later?
Just in case you give it away.
No, we won't give away.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So the story is this. I actually once saw a video of this 90-plus-year-old gentleman, this man in Brazil, and his family was celebrating his birthday. I think his 94th, 95th birthday. He was quite advanced in years. And before he would blow the candles, he decided that he wanted to. Someone asked him, "Hey, no, Grandpa, can you recite the genealogy of Jesus for us?" And he quoted the whole genealogy of Jesus by memory at 95.
Whoa.
And I was looking at that saying, "Man, this is impressive." And I'm thinking here, actually, if we build this lifelong habit of actually memorizing scripture, I think that would do wonders for our brain as far as combating Alzheimer's, dementia, and so on. There is research that talks about it. Because one of the evils of our day and age, then, is that we don't memorize anything barely anymore because we have external devices to do that. Yeah. So we don't use the built-in capacity that God gave us to our brains to memorize stuff, and that starts a trophy, starts to decrease in capacity, and I think we paid a high price for that.
Well, so we also get more out of the Bible by memorizing it. So right now I'm memorizing 100%. Revelation 14. The first 5 verses of Revelation 14. And man, there's things there that I had never seen until I started memorizing.
Yes, when you memorize, you start seeing things you haven't seen before. I absolutely agree with you. And inspired by that example, just a few days ago, I was trying to memorize the genealogy of Jesus myself.
Oh, wow.
I haven't worked it through yet, but I started, and I was just having fun. Basically, I was trying to, my technique is this. I was saying for each plate that I was washing or each item that I was washing in my as a dirty dish, yes, I would say a name of the person in the genealogy of Jesus. And before I know it, the whole thing was washed up. So there you go. It's a bit of a fun way. Another way that I like to memorize like these long lists of names is while I'm folding clothes.
Yeah, right.
I have lots of clothes to fold at home, and I just attribute each person in the lineage of Jesus to a piece, and before I know it, boom.
Who are you wearing today, Skafy?
This is probably Amram.
Abraham?
No, Abraham. Amram, the father of Abraham. Okay,
All
Dan.
right.
Next
Olympics.
one.
Yes, we have a good news story today from how Australia finished at the Winter Olympics last week in the best ever performance in a Winter Olympics by an Australian team, with 3 gold, 2 silver, and 1 bronze. Did you know, Skafy, that it's only a few Olympics ago that we actually won our first gold medal ever?
Yeah, tell me about that story.
Yeah, this is an interesting story. And then we'll come back to me working at the Olympics in Sydney. So our team did really well at this year's Olympics, and I think we number 14 on the medal table.
Yeah, actually we were ahead of the UK, Spain.
In a country that we're not known for our snow, we're known for our beaches and summer in Australia. But we do have ski fields here, not as good as overseas. But anyway, so
they're all right.
Yeah. So the first gold medal ever for the Winter Olympics for Australia was Stephen Bradbury in 2002, and my kids had never heard the story. Of course, they're born like many years after Stephen Bradbury won that famous race. It's become a bit of a thing in Australian culture. Doing a Stephen Bradbury when you
really
when you're coming dead last,
funny.
and all of a sudden things just work out so that you win. So we got the video of it and we played the race for our kids without telling them what was going to happen, and they're watching this Aussie guy right at the back, and then at the end, everyone just before the finish line, the 4 competitors in front of him, they all crashed, they collided and crashed out. And so Stephen Bradbury, who was 5th and last in the final, he made the final. So it's not like he's a deadbeat. But he certainly wasn't favourite at this stage of his career. And he was in the right place at the right time to just cruise past them all and get the gold medal. And of course, he was
a great story, man.
He was a little bit disbelieving of his luck, and he was quite humble about it, and he saw the funny side as well. But it's interesting. There's a backstory there, and Stephen Bradbury had actually been favourite to win gold medal at numerous previous Winter Olympics. He was actually quite a good competitor, and through
it was
series of misfortune,
skating, wasn't it?
Speed skating, yeah. So short course speed skating, where they're on their ice skates on an ice rink, tight laps, tight circles, and they're just going hard at it, and it's amazing how fast they go. So he was actually taken out by collisions that weren't his fault in previous races. So in a previous Winter Olympics, he through no fault of his own, he lost the opportunity to win when he was favourite. He was at his peak. He actually did win gold medals in the World Championships, and so going into the Olympics, they were favourite, the Australian relay team, to win. They got a bronze medal in 1994. In fact, this was Australia's first ever medal in the Winter Olympics. Was,
oh, really?
1994, when Stephen Bradbury was in that team that won the bronze medal for the 5,000 metres skate.
I didn't know that.
Relay.
5,000 metres?
Yeah.
As relay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he also had a series of major setbacks. So not only collisions and being knocked out of a race through someone else's fault, but he also broke his neck in the year 2000, and he had an artery sliced in 1994, and lost a lot of blood and needed over 100 stitches. And so he really had a lot of bad luck prior to this good luck, where he just skated across and to win the gold.
I think that God just just wanted him to give that message. Steve, you deserve it, man. Here you go.
So there's some interesting applications for us in the Christian life. There's Matthew 24 verse 13 where Jesus says, "He who endures to the end will be saved." And of course, in the Christian race, the race of the Christian life, all of us can win. There's not just one winner. But the important thing is enduring to the end, and that's what Stephen Bradbury demonstrated through that one particular race, but also through his career, through all the setbacks, and then finally being in the right place at the right time to win that medal. I also think of this verse in Ecclesiastes 9 verse 11. I returned and saw that under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the men of understanding, nor favour to men of skill, but time and chance happen to them all. And Stephen Bradbury was in the right place at the right time when time and chance happened to him.
Yes,
so,
I love it. One of my favorite passages in Ecclesiastes, that one.
Yeah. So interesting. Sport is it's a cultural thing in our modern life. It can be an idol, but the Apostle Paul, certainly made references to sport in his writings and the ancient Olympics, and so we can draw life lessons from sport. There's good things that can come out of it, teamwork, endurance, enduring to the end, fitness, and being outdoors, and getting out there and living the life that God created us to live. So, but we need to make sure that sport never becomes our idol, never becomes the thing that we worship or put before God. Interesting experience that I had back working at the Olympics in the year 2000. I worked in commentary systems, similar to the job that you're doing here for us, Sandy. I was I wouldn't say I was a producer. I was a technician, but working, controlling the sound levels and so forth for commentators.
Oh, really?
In a production room in the main stadium in Stadium Australia. And this is actually an interesting testimony for me putting God first. So I was part of, probably hundreds of people that were wanting to work at the Olympics, wanting to get the best venues. And I said, look, I can't work on Sabbath. So I was going to miss whatever happened on Sabbath. I just wasn't going to be there.
You told them
and so they were
straight
like, man, this is frustrating. Okay, I guess we can squeeze you in. We'll have to put you at the main stadium because that's where there's the biggest team, and they could backfill like when someone's not,
more,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so they put a Jew who also wanted to keep the Sabbath, and me, who was keeping the Sabbath. They put the two of us in the main stadium. So we were there for a lot of the things that happened. We weren't there for the opening ceremony. That was on Friday night.
Yep.
So we missed that for Sabbath. But we were there for the Kathy Freeman 400 metres gold medal that she won. And we got some autographs. And it was a great experience.
What a great experience. Yeah. Yes.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Dan, I want to talk to you a little bit about this interesting story about this Christian. He's a pastor. He's a rapper. His name is Trip Lee. And Trip Lee released an album, and this album is called For His Glory. And it has 13 tracks, and one of the things that he sings about in his CD says that his music is very much shaped by his chronic disease. So since the times that he was in university and college, so he's 38 years old now, so basically 20 years back, about when he was 18, he started to suffer from chronic fatigue. And he says that his experience with his chronic fatigue with suffering is integral to his music and to how he's thinking about God. Because he wants to, in one hand, he wants to praise God, but at the same time, he's also praising God from a place of pain, from a place of suffering, from a place of fatigue.
Yeah.
So he really said that he was very much meditating in this idea of worshiping God when things are hard, when life is hard. So I actually want to talk about that topic. But before we jump into that topic, we have to get an answer to the quiz question first. So please, producer Sandy.
So the men listed as Jesus' ancestors, we had 4 options: Jonah, Caleb, Moses, and Zerubbabel. And the answer is Zerubbabel.
Yeah, Zerubbabel, who not only was in the line of Judah, but he was also a king in Israel. He was the king under whom the second temple was rebuilt.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Del, thank you very much. Yeah. There you go, Zerubbabel. So moving back here, one of the songs, I was listening to the album today. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the rights to share the song with you, but you can go if you have like Apple Music or whatever other streaming. You can look for Trip Lee, For His Glory. Look, I must say it's not necessarily my style of music. I think it's a very American gospel, modern songs with a lot of special effects and so on. But the lyrics were very interesting. One of the lyrics is actually talking about boasting. I will boast. And this is where actually I want to talk to you about that idea of how can we boast in Christianity? How can we boast in the Bible? And the Apostle Paul says that, look, I will not boast in anything but in knowing Jesus Christ. So this is the reason like we can boast at. There's one thing that we can boast. We can boast like that we have a really amazing God.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Our God is actually better than any other gods. Better than everyone. And look, and he definitely has the bragging rights for that, because what we are boasting on is in God's incredible, immense love for us. No other God has ever become a human being and died for us. No other God is actually even compared to God, because all these other gods that the nations have, according to the Christian worldview, they are real, but they are spirits of demons that take advantage of humanity. Because look, when we as humans, when we see supernatural things happening, we are quick to jump and say, "Hey, this is from God. This must be we must worship and respect that being that has this extra supernatural power." And the Bible says, "Look, wait a minute, not all that glitters is gold in the spiritual world." But I digress. Let's get back here to the idea of boasting.
Interesting. This Trip Lee's website is builttobrag.com.
Oh, builttobrag.com. Very interesting. So one of the songs that Trip Lee sings about is he's based in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And I think that all of his songs really are based, from what I could tell, in Bible. They're very scriptural songs. There's a lot of scripture quoting from that songs. And all of these songs, they were in passages relating to worshiping God, serving God, trusting in God when we are weak. And one of that passages is in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And today, that's where I wanted to focus this theme with you, Dan, because I think this is a very interesting one.
Yeah.
If you have your Bible open up with you, can you read for us 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 7?
"And lest I should be exalted above measure by the abundance of the revelations, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I be exalted above measure."
All right. So Paul talks about this thorn in the flesh that he had. Now, question to you, Dan. What is your interpretation of that? What was that thorn in the flesh? What do you think it was?
If I was to have a guess, if this was a quiz question from producer Sandy and it had to be, something specific, I would say something to do with his eyesight.
Something to do with his eyesight. And look, there's a lot of people that believe that. This is probably the mainstream interpretation of the thorn in the flesh. And the evidence for that, do you know what's the evidence for that, the eyesight?
Where he writes, "See with what large letters I write."
Yeah.
At the end of one of his epistles, where a scribe had written everything, most of his epistle, and he signed off at the end with large letters because he couldn't see.
That's right. So that's definitely one. And then there's another passage, I believe, in Galatians, and says, "Look, I know that you would pluck off your own eyes to give them to me."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
With that, though, it is a bit of an expression. I do not know how much is it because they really wanted to give their eyes to Paul, like metaphorically speaking. But even today, in Arabic culture today, they have this expression. When you ask a favor, let's say that you're asking me a favor, and I want to give it to you, to do it to you. It says, "Hey, Skafy, can I borrow your car? And you just need to run some errands. I have no car." And one way that an Arabic person would respond to you then, it says, "Then, if you ask me for my two eyes, I would give them to you. Like, what is my car? Just take my car.
Yeah.
Like you could have my eyes if you want."
Yeah.
And it's just like an endearing term. You only say this to like people that you really care about, and you're just saying, "Look, only that, like only the car, like you can have everything."
Yeah.
So it might be in that context that Paul was approaching that, but it could be the eyes. But there's other theories that came about as well. Some people suggested that Paul could actually have experienced seizures, like epileptical seizures.
Yep.
And the idea here is this idea of messenger of Satan to torment me. Because if it's a messenger of Satan, so people said, it sometimes it's acting, sometimes it's not acting. Sometimes it's coming, sometimes it's going. So they're thinking about something that would be very debilitating, which would be, imagine for the Apostle Paul. And look, I don't think it's actually a far-fetched theory, this one. Because Paul went through shipwrecks twice, I believe. He went 3 times, he was lashed in his back, 39 lashes. I mean, this stuff should mess up with your neurological system in some way or the other. So some people suggest, hey, maybe it's epileptic. Other people think that it's, and I think this one is also quite a feasible one. Some people think it's kind of malaria or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Also plays up with this idea that sometimes it flares up, sometimes it doesn't flare up. So sometimes it's this messenger of Satan, sometimes it's not. Okay. And look, Paul he traveled extensively all over the world for him to catch some kind of a tropical disease, which were so common at the time. It's also not uncommon. Would be not unheard of.
Yeah. At
all. I often wondered if it was some kind of like more mobility related issue, because Paul was always on the move. He was beaten up many times. Once he was stoned to the point that everybody thought that he was died.
Yeah, right.
That he died. And look, again, like when you receive like massive stones in your head,
or in your legs,
surely that will leave some kind of consequences, to you. So, look, the reality is we don't know.
Yeah.
It could have been like a mechanical thing, it could be like an eyesight thing, could be neurological, could be just a disease. But I actually like the fact that he never told us. He never identifies it.
Yeah.
It's actually quite genius, because now we all can relate.
We can.
To what is our messenger of Satan, our thorn in the flesh. We can relate to Paul. And let me just say this before I think, sometimes when we are going through, very difficult situations here, I am very blessed in that I don't really have to live with any long-term conditions. God blessed me with really good health.
That's great.
And I'm thanking him for that, and I try to use that health so I can serve him the best I can. Don't take it for granted. But I, when I got the man flu, for example, a few times.
Oh, that's
which is very terrible. Probably worse than everything else you can possibly imagine. In those moments,
we haven't provoked producer Sandy there.
No. I think she doesn't. She can't catch it because she's not a man. So have you ever had man flu? Have you ever caught the man flu at all?
No.
Yeah, so you don't know what it is. Look, they say that it's 10 times worse than childbirth pains.
It is 10 times worse than childbirth.
Yes, this is what they say. And look, I agree. I've been having gotten it. The point is, we can sometimes look at the Bible, particularly, jokes aside now, think, hey, the Apostle Paul doesn't know what I'm going through. Look, the Apostle Paul knows what you're going through.
Yeah, right.
Jesus knows what you're going through, but I would even say that the Apostle Paul is, because the Apostle Paul was not one given to whining at all.
Right.
He's in prison and he's rejoicing, he's singing. He's been
stoned
and whipped,
and he doesn't complain about it.
He's not complaining. Say, look,
he's boasting about it.
He actually says these things are actually just light afflictions compared to the eternal weight of glory that he said before. So when Paul says that he was frustrated with a thorn in the flesh, messenger of Satan, like it was something pretty bad, probably way worse than we can even imagine.
Maybe worse than man flu.
Yes, it could be even all of these things that we imagine, all these things that we are discussing. Imagine it could have been all of them at once as well. Epileptical attacks and blindness, plus mechanical mobility issues, plus malaria. Imagine, but God's answer to him is this. He prayed 3 times that God would deliver, and God says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. And this is what a lot of the songs of Tripoli are based on, this idea that, hey, you know what? When the weaker we are, the closer God is to us, and the more clearly we can see God's power in our lives when we don't really have anything human, from a human perspective, to brag, only in the power of Jesus.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And speaking of depression, speaking about how our food impacts our mood. I am very honored to introduce Angela Saunders today. She's going to be interviewed now. She's joining us by phone. Angela, she is an accredited dietitian and nutritionist, and she's going to help us understand the connection between healthy eating and our mental health. Angela, good morning to you. It's great to have you with us.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm really good. Look, me and, of course, Dan Livingston is with me today. He's also going to be, he has some questions that he wants to ask you regarding that topic. So
I've got a few questions for you, Angela. It's great to have you on the show this morning. And the first one, why would we worry? Why is it important? Why should we worry about mental and cognitive health?
Well, Daniel, our latest Australian health report tells us that for children, the 5 top health issues are anxiety, depression, conduct disorder, autism, and asthma. And you might have noticed that 4 of those are related to mental health.
Interesting.
concerns. That's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah, particularly that it's children, because I remember, back in the days, it was pretty much unheard of. But now more and more children are having to struggle with mental health issues.
Yeah.
Yes, and for adolescents, this is pretty shocking. 1 in 3 adolescents are actually receiving mental health services.
Yeah, wow.
And so that's children, and from that we're learning that what mothers eat during pregnancy is super important for their children's mental health. But for older adults, dementia has now become, for men, the second leading cause of death, and for women, the first leading cause of death. We think of women dying from breast cancer, heart disease, same for men, heart disease, but now dementia has overtaken those. So that's huge concern.
Interesting. We'll come back to dementia. But as a dietitian, how did you get to be so interested in cognitive health? Is there a link between what we eat, our gut, and the health of our brain?
Yeah, so I'm now retired, but over the decades that I've worked as a dietitian, I've focused on managing health with food. And it's really only in the last maybe 10 years that we now have a far better understanding of how all that works. And I love the how. I want to know why and how this all works. Right. And I've gotten really excited about this new research on how the gut, the community of microbes within our gut, has this amazing, profound influence on our health.
Yeah, the gut microbiome.
Health, brain health. This is amazing. So the microbes in our gut are quietly shaping really every aspect of our long-term health. Now that's including our immunity, our metabolic health, like our blood sugar, our blood cholesterol, and even our mood and cognition. That means learning and memory and so forth. So what we've learned is that if we look after our gut well, our gut microbes that is, they in turn are going to help to enhance our overall health, including our mental health, our mood and cognition. And, we know we have neurons in the brain. Of course, we understand that. But did you know we have neurons in our gut as well? And they're being cared for by our gut microbes. And they're in constant communication with the neurons in our brain. So we know now that this gut-brain connection, or axis as we call it, explains why when we're anxious, we kind of feel it in our gut.
Yeah,
We've all had that experience, we sort of refer to it as our sixth sense. So all very interesting. I found this fascinating research.
Well, maybe our gut could be known as our second brain, given that there's a lot of neuron activity down there.
Exactly. Yep.
So tell me more about these microbes. Why are they so important, and how do they influence our brain health and our mood?
Well, these gut microbes, we have to think of them as living organisms. That's exactly what they are. So they rely on food for their health. They're relying on some very specific nutrients from plants. to keep them healthy. So they need food, and the food they need comes from plants, and in particular, nutrients such as fibre. You maybe have heard of prebiotic fibres, that's a particular type of fibre, but also polyphenols. So those are those really interesting bioactive compounds in colourful fruits and vegetables that have a profound antioxidant effect on our health. So, believe it or not, these microbes, they digest these nutrients, and as they're digesting these fibres and polyphenols, they're producing a critical substance that we call short-chain fatty acids. There's a number of those, but they help with digestion of food, absorption of nutrients, protecting our gut lining. That's super, super important. They help to support our immune system. They reduce the risk of inflammation. We're going to talk a bit more about that later. But they also help with satiety, helping us feel full after a meal, and that helps with weight management. So, but in regards to brain health, they also produce what we call neurotransmitters, and one of them in particular is called serotonin. Serotonin sends calming signals to the brain. So that helps to manage our mood and improve our memory. So this is all fascinating stuff, to me at least.
Yeah.
And another amazing thing that these short-chain fatty acids do, they actually act like fertilizers to our brain cells. So if we're eating the right food, we can actually grow more brain cells. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So we do refer to our gut microbiome, this collection of microbes within our gut, as an essential organ now, because it's doing some really critical work for our overall health, including our brain health.
Yeah, I understand there's some groundbreaking research here in Australia from the Food and Mood Research Centre in Deakin University, and it's referred to as the SMILES trial. What did they find in that trial?
Yeah, this was groundbreaking research internationally. They found that people with major depression who ate a mostly plant-based diet, or something like the Mediterranean diet, were able to significantly manage and lower the risk of depression. In fact, a third of them, Daniel, went into remission from major depression. This was outstanding research, and it was a clear cause and effect, not just an association.
Yeah.
So we know that that's really, really strong evidence from research. And this all happened after just 3 months of changing the way they ate. And then there were some follow-up studies that they did as well that showed by eating a wide variety, a diversity of plant foods, they were able to not just only reduce their depression, but improve their memory. And, we all want that, don't we?
Yeah.
I certainly do now as I'm getting older. So understanding that connection between the gut and the brain, we know is super empowering for people who are really keen to improve their mental and overall health.
Yeah, that's really interesting and great to see research trials that clearly show those outcomes. It's hard to do randomized controlled trials for diet, isn't it? It's exactly. A hard thing to It's a hard thing. Yeah. So I've heard that chronic inflammation is the underlying cause of most chronic diseases, like heart disease and diabetes, etc. And I said we'd come back to dementia. So I imagine that's true for dementia also. What does the research say about this?
Yeah, so this is very interesting. Managing chronic inflammation is really key to managing overall health, including dementia, mental health, etc. So coming back to the gut, chronic inflammation actually starts in the gut. And if we eat poorly, unhealthy microbes are going to start dominating in our gut. And we'll start to produce some harmful substances that then go on to damage our gut barrier. That then triggers our immune system. And then that sets off this alarm system called chronic inflammation. But if we eat well and we keep those microbes nice and healthy, and we have a balance, a better balance of microbes, that helps to manage blood pressure, blood cholesterol, blood sugar, and, believe it or not, reduces your risk of dementia by 60%. A wonderful study in America was done on this, and they found that it significantly lowered the risk of dementia just simply by eating well and looking after those gut microbes. So essentially, when we keep our microbes healthy, we're also keeping our overall body healthy. So this is telling me the why, the how. How does this all work? Well, seems like these gut microbes are a hugely important part of our health. We need to look after them.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Hey, we only have a couple more minutes. I've got a couple more questions, though, for you. There seems to be so much controversy regarding what it means to eat well. And I imagine there's more recent research about gut health and brain health. Do we have a clear idea for the best foods for health, including brain health? And so as we finish, can you give us a little bit more specifically, what are the best foods for brain health?
Yeah, so I've already mentioned, our gut microbes love plant foods. So what we're looking for is to eat the rainbow of plant foods. So lots of colourful fruits and veggies, berries, citrus, apples, melons, and those lovely colourful veggies, those dark green leafy veggies, etc. But legumes, did you know that legumes were a wonderful source of very important fibre for our gut microbes, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and those healthy fats as well, extra virgin olive oil, avocado. So, it's all about diversity of food, plant foods in particular, and our gut microbes are going to love you for that.
Man, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Yeah. What about water? Where does that fit in?
Oh, when you start to eat more plant foods, you're eating much more fibre, and fibre and water love each other. You've got to have those together. They want to be together. So be sure you drink lots of water. It's very important to be hydrated, but fibre and water work together in the gut to keep us nice and healthy.
Excellent. We know that there's currently no cure for dementia, but let's end on some great news. About half of all cases can be prevented or delayed by improving lifestyle choices. Yes.
So a very, very important study report from America, from the Lancet, tells us dementia is not inevitable with age. So that's really great news.
Yeah.
So essentially they're saying if we eat well, if we move more, sleep better, quit smoking and drinking, we can actually lower our risk of dementia. So it's not just about our food choices, Daniel, but it really is about all the other lifestyle choices as well that keeps us well. And I bet that you've heard about the longest living blue zone communities. Yeah. And they eat mostly plant foods and do all the things we've just mentioned. They stay socially connected. They take time to rest and reduce stress. And they live, as a consequence, well into their 9th and 10th decades without chronic disease and without dementia. So, that's super good news, isn't it?
Yeah, that's awesome. So there was a late 19th century health reformer by the name of Ellen White, and she understood the connection between our lifestyle choices and overall health. And she said something along these lines: the health of the body has everything to do with the health of the mind and heart. Can you comment on that, Angela?
Yeah, so she well understood that connection all those years ago. She was really talking about spirituality. She understood that it's easier to think positively, to be open to God's purpose for our lives when we care for our bodies. If we care for our bodies, our minds are clearer, etc. So, Daniel, I hope your listeners are enjoying good health. And if they would like further information, I highly regard healthcare providers. So reach out to your doctor, your dietitian, your naturopath, and ask about the programs that are available that help to support and provide additional information. And we know that God said to us that I love the text in John 10:10. I have come that you might have life and have life more abundantly. So, you know, we hope that your listeners are living an abundant life.
Yeah, thank you very much, Angela. That's really helpful, practical tips for liviving healthily and having good mental health as well.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.